are kind of higher today. I flew my RC plane, took it up a few hundred feet, and just to see if the winds were any higher at altitude. They don't seem too bad. I could still penetrate with the plane. And my glid's about the same speed as the RC plane, so we'll see how it looks. One just in the west. I think I'm going to head to the mountain over there, kill the motor, do some ridge soaring, and then we'll talk about why I chose the Hadron XX over any of the other wings on the market. Come do a touch and go. Pressure and full flare. Wind it up. 2 steps, then we're up. Oh, there's a helicopter. The heck is he doing, bruh? I wonder what he's looking at. I want to go over there and see what he's looking at, but at the same time, I don't feel like being taken out by his rotor wash. Huh. That's not something you see every day. Alright, well, we have arrived at our destination. I'm going to pull my speed bar in. Ain't going to need that. So, I bring you here today to talk about why I chose the Hadron XX versus the Ozone Freeride, the Snake XX, the Nucleon XX. I even thought about getting just a smaller ITV Billy, just getting extra small ITV Billy. So I've been flying for about a year now, but I fly very often. I have a lot of flight time. I fly multiple times a week, so I progress very quickly. So I thought about, I demoed the first advanced wing I ever flew, other than the ITV Billy, size small, 22 meter, which is the wing that I have the most flight time on. I was ready for a more advanced wing. I wanted more speed and more agile handling. So, and that was when I lived at sea level in Alabama. So I asked Ryan Shaw if I could demo a Hadron XX 18 meter, because that's where I fall in the weight range on. And he sent me one. So I demoed the 18 meter Hadron XX, and at the time I had just started doing wing overs. I wasn't perfect at launches and landings yet, but I landed on my feet pretty much every time. I've only had like one butt landing. But what I thought about the 18 meter Hadron XX was that it was really, really fast for takeoffs and landings. I love the way it handled for brake pressure, though. Like, it's firm brake pressure, but when it just takes the tiniest amount of movement to initiate a turn with the brake toggle. So I wasn't ready to commit for that to be like my only wing at the time, at that stage of my flying. So I was like, you know what? I'll put some more time on the ITV Billy. It's still in really good condition, and then we'll see later on. So a little bit later, I moved to El Paso, and here I'm 4,000 feet above sea level. So I went up 4,000 feet in altitude compared to where I live. And I thought I would see a more drastic change in takeoff and landing speeds than what I did. But it really wasn't that much different. I mean, like maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour. Not really that noticeable if you have a good landing and takeoff technique. So I got here, I flew the Billy some more, and here I kind of have to travel from where I take off and land from to go do anything fun, like a ridge soar or go fly around and see things. So I do a lot more cross country here. I have to travel across this wide open desert. And I like to do it fast because if I'm slow, I'll waste all that time flying in a straight line. So I wanted a faster wing. So the 18-meter Hadron, the Freeride, the Snake, any of those. So I wanted to demo the Freeride because that was what all the hype was. And the problem was I was on the lower half of the weight range for the 19-meter and on the upper half of the weight range for the 17-meter. I knew the 17-meter was going to be a rocket ship with me, fast takeoff and landings. And because I'm at a higher altitude as well, I didn't really want to be on a 17-meter permanently, so I got a 19-meter to demo. Same wing that Tucker flew in the Icarus race. So I get this 19-meter Freeride, and I demo it. And, it felt faster. The handling on the 19-meter Freeride was not as sharp as the 18-meter Hadron. I like the Hadron better for how it feels in the air. And the speed wasn't really barely any faster than the ITV Billy 22-meter. It was definitely more efficient. Out of the Hadron, the Freeride, and the Billy, and the Snake that I flew, the Freeride was the most efficient. Trims in all the way, and that wing is like a floaty paraglider. Super efficient. It allows you to slow down really slow for landings. But it just wasn't that much faster. And what I didn't like about the Freeride compared to the Hadron was the Freeride was really twitchy in turbulence. So like right now I'm ridge soaring. Winds are pretty high, probably 10 miles an hour up here. And I'm hitting a few, little wind gusts here and there, little small evening thermals. And the Hadron, I feel them in the wing, but they feel vertical, just like the Billy. You feel bumps, but you feel them more like acceleration of G's in the vertical axis, up and down. The Freeride, on the other hand, anytime it hit turbulence or bumps, it would bump. The wing would shift forward and aft. And I didn't like that surge forward at all on the Freeride. It made me really, really nervous that, seeing like there's a bump. It made me really nervous that the wing was going to get a frontal collapse. And for the conditions that I fly in sometimes, that is the last thing that I want. I do a lot of time kind of low level, flying really fast. And I need a wing I can trust. So I feel like the Freeride, they focus more on making it really efficient and gave it less reflex, especially with the trims in. And the Hadron is a constant reflex airfoil. It doesn't get more reflex the faster you fly, whereas the Snake XX, the faster you fly with that wing, the more reflex the wing gets. So in theory, the safer you are against collapse the faster you fly with the Snake. The Hadron is a constant reflex, and when you push the speed bar and let the trims out, you just change the angle of attack, but you don't necessarily add more reflex. So what I didn't like about the Snake was you can't push on the speed bar with the trims in on the Snake. And for the conditions I fly in sometimes, it's a little bit bumpy. It's not midday, but the sun is still up. And I like to get places fast, but still safe. And I like to be able to be on the speed bar, but if I hit turbulence, let the speed bar out and active pilot immediately to prevent collapse or to stop a collapse from happening or recover from one. But with the Snake, unless you are using the PAP Kohler system, I think that's what they call it. It's for slalom racing, where the speed bar also releases trims. Unless you're using that, but if you're using that, then you can't let the trims out. You only have to use a speed bar, so you can't on nice days, you can't just let the trims out and put the brake toggles up and relax to go somewhere fast. So you either have to always use a speed bar or basically not use it with the trims in. So I didn't really like that. I wouldn't feel like that would be a safer option for me to just let the trims out to get somewhere fast. And I wouldn't, if I did take a collapse, I wouldn't be able to pull the trims in quickly enough and then recover. So that's why I went with the Hadron. I love the way that it handled. It's very efficient. Obviously, I'm ridge soaring right now in about 10 mile an hour winds, 15 mile an hour maybe, with a paramotor on my back. It feels very solid in the air, more so than the Freeride. It's fast, efficient, handles nice. The one thing I didn't like about the Hadron was, when I demoed it originally, was the takeoff and landing. I was used to my Billy. When you flare, it gives you a lot more lift. And the Hadron felt more like the wing just slowed down, but you didn't get extra lift when you applied the brakes. It's kind of weird. So when I would come into land, I would flare, and it just felt like the wing would just stall, and I would drop like a rock. But I think that was just my inexperience with a smaller sized wing and getting used to how fast they land. So, yeah, I went with the Hadron. The thing I didn't like about the Freeride was, I think Tucker has talked about this in his videos, the speed range, from 0 to 100%, about 1/3 of the speed range is in the trimmers and 2/3 is in the speed bar, and that's very true when I demoed it. You let the trims out, you get a little bit of speed from it, but it's not anything drastic at all. It's not like it gets crazy fast with the trims out. But when you push a speed bar, and the speed bar range is so long on the Freeride that I couldn't, even with my speed bar all the way up, my knees are like in my chest, I could push the speed bar all the way out, and I still wasn't able to use the full range of the speed bar. So I didn't like that. If you want to get somewhere really fast and you want to fly full speed, you got to be trims out and then push the speed bar, which is really, really long travel. But let's say you don't want to use the speed bar. Let's say you're the kind of pilot that just likes to let the trims out, put the brakes on the toggles, and relax. You're not going to go very fast on a Freeride because it's not that fast. Compared to the Hadron, 50% of the speed range is in the trims, 50% is in the speed bar, and they feel about equal. You get about the same speed from either one, or both combined, you get going really, really fast. The ITV Billy, all the speed is in the trims, and pushing the speed bar in the Billy hardly does anything at all. It's like, oh, I just went 2 miles an hour faster, woohoo. So yeah, the Hadron is definitely more efficient than the Billy. I have a ton of confidence in the Hadron for collapse resistance. And it's fast. I like the 50-50 speed range or speed bar because you can use either or both together. I like that you can push the speed bar with the trims in. If you like doing slalom style but you want to be safe, you want to get it down low, full speed bar, and then pop it in and do a big wing over, that's a lot of fun to do. But if you have the engine out, let it go to the speed bar, your trim's already in, and just land. Versus the Snake, if you're low, you can't be on speed bar unless you have the trims out. And let's say your engine quits, your trims are still out, you're going to be landing really fast, especially if you're on a 16-meter wing, which would be the weight range for me. So I didn't like that too much. Oh, the other thing. So the Freeride is like a whole kilogram lighter weight, the wing material itself, like how much the wing weighs on a scale is much light, or a whole kilo lighter than the Hadron. The Hadron's about the same as the Billy was. And what that does is it makes the wing able to kite or stay above your head with lighter wind conditions. So if you're weak at forward launches in nil wind, wouldn't have to run as fast to keep the wing above your head. But I would say the downside is, and you can feel it in the material, that it's just not as durable on the ozone wings. The material is really lightweight, and as far as quality goes, I've heard people say, oh, the ozone's quality is terrible and the Dudex is much better. I would say I think the Dudex looks better. The material's thicker. All the stitching is perfect. The wings are clean, profile shape-wise. Let me give you a view of the wing since I'm talking about it. That makes sense, right? The risers on the Freeride were longer, from like the clip-in point to the top of the malleons was a much taller size, longer on the Freeride. So when you go to do a forward launch and you have the A's in your hands, you have to stretch your hands out really far. Let me show you. You have to stretch your hands out further with a Freeride than you do on the Hadron. So for forward launches, I didn't like that. Now, I'm just being nitpicky. If you're an amazing pilot, you're doing sats and all the cool stuff, you probably could care less if the Freeride risers are an inch longer. Who cares, you know? But if you're an intermediate pilot who just wants a nicer wing and you have the maturity level to fly it in the right conditions, then you might care about these things. Last but not least is the price. The Ozones want a premium for their wings. Now, maybe you have the hookup and you have a buddy who will give it to you at less than retail, but if you're paying retail price for an Ozone wing, it's going to be a whole third or 30% higher price than a Dudex, more than likely. I got this wing at a killer deal, and I'm really happy with it. I love this. Oh, another thing. So, stability. The Hadron, look at this. I can put the brakes on the toggles. Not completely safe, but it's smooth enough. I feel comfortable. Brakes are on the toggles. The wing is flying perfectly straight. I could push on the speed bar. It would still fly straight. I could do a little weight shift turn. I'll show you. I'll do a weight shift turn here. So I'm leaning left to slide back some. All right, now I'm going to do a hard right weight shift. The wing rocks over. Come on, there you go. All right, the wing rocks over. That was a complete weight shift. And look, it's flying straight again. Now the Freeride, when I demoed it on the 19 meter, anytime you were, especially on speed bar or with the trims out, if you initiated a weight shift turn only and then tried to level it out afterwards, the wing would start oscillating. And you would almost every time have to reach up and pull a brake toggle to stop the oscillation. It was not self-stabilizing as much as the Hadron is. The Hadron, I can be in a turn, come out of the turn, push on the speed bar, and just barely dampen it out, and it'll fly straight. The Freeride, it was like constant piloting required. Especially with the trims out and on speed bar, the tiniest turbulence would start to make it turn, and then it would just continue to turn and get almost to wing overs if you didn't do anything at all. The Hadron's a lot more stable. It's still less stable than the Billy, the ITV Billy. You could fly that thing in a tornado, and it would just keep flying in the same direction you want it to. It's awesome. But I wanted more speed and more efficiency, and I got it, and I love it. Recap, the pluses of the Freeride is it's more efficient, easier to launch and land because it's lighter weight. The negatives, it's going to be less durable with the lighter weight, and it didn't feel as collapse resistant as a Hadron, and it wasn't as stable as a Hadron. So for cross-country flying, if you don't want to have to constantly pilot the wing, then I would get a more stable wing because the Freeride is not it. And if you're the pluses of the Hadron, if you're a cross-country pilot and you like stability, you can let the trims out on this thing, put the toggles on the brakes, and just go. I think the handling is better personally on the Hadron. And what else? Oh, you got these flat doohickeys. They work for launches and landings. I learned the trick is to not pull them in all the way. Just pull the flaps in 1/3 or 2/3 of the way for neo wind launches and landings. It still lets the wing come up really nice. It still gets you off the ground faster than, you know, with the flaps out. It makes a notable difference in speed. I talked about the speed bar thing versus the flaps and max speed on the Freeride and the Hadron. 50-50 on the Hadron, 1/3, 2/3 trimmed speed bar on the Freeride. The Snake for me was kind of out of the question just because of the speed bar thing. I like to use a speed bar with trims in. You can't do that on a Snake, so I was like, you know what, the Hadron is where it's at for me. I hope this was informative for you guys. I hope that you maybe learned something if you're thinking about your next wing. My recommendation would be to demo any wing you're thinking about buying. It's a big investment. You want to make sure you get the right one. And I think more so, it's not about the model you get. It's about the size, making sure you get the correct size. So if you're thinking about, I'm going to buy a used wing, but it's a size too big, don't do it. Because a wing that's too big is not fun. I flew a 20-meter Hadron XX, and it was so big and boaty. The handling was super soft on it. It didn't fly like a Hadron was meant to be. They have the weight range for a reason. It wasn't fast because I was too light on it. So my recommendation would be get a wing where you fall in the middle of the weight range or on the upper end. And that's just personally, I think they fly better that way. Way more fun. You'll enjoy it more. See if our motor will crank up. See if we can go do something else. Second pool.